All right, guys. So today on how I got started as a real estate agent, we have Hector Aguilar from eXp Realty. Hector, how you
Yes.
doing?
Hey, how you doing, Brian? Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to our time together today.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Funny story. I need to. I'll put it at the end with the business card. The way that I got in contact with you is like I found your business card on the floor, and then we gave you a call and was like, I think I'm supposed to connect with Hector.
That's a
Which
funny story.
yeah, I need to grab it out of my car. Actually, I'll grab it in the end. We'll throw it in here.
Yeah, no problem.
In
No
the
problem.
edit. In the edit.
It's interesting that, I'm a firm believer. I always carry 5 business cards in my wallet every single day. And my goal is to give out those 5 cards, either to a waitress, someone I meet in my daily dealings. And inevitably what happens is I make that my target goal to find 5 new people that I can give that to. Sometimes just luck would have it, right? Like you found my card in your parking lot at your church.
Yeah.
And you picked it up and here we are. So, God works in some great ways.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You have a lot of experience in real estate. Like, how did you get started in this industry?
I started when I was 20 years old. I was actually just about to turn 21 that April. Counting those years, it's close to 30 years now. And it's a funny story how I got started. As a young man, I worked in a men's retail store. If you're familiar with the Men's Warehouse or Jose Bank, I worked for a small store, a boutique store called Howard's Fashions for Men. I started when I was 16 and kind of worked my way up and kind of learned sales, tactics of sales, which is, there's really no tactic. It's just, there's an adage is find out what they need and then deliver it, right? So I learned at an early age to ask a lot of questions. On one afternoon, a gentleman walked in and I had the pleasure of attending him. He asked me, or I asked him, hey, what brings you in? I said, I've got an event that I have to attend and I'm looking for a certain tie. I said, great, well, why don't you come on over? I'll help you out. And throughout that conversation turned in what could have been a 15 or 20 minute conversation turned in to about an hour and a half. And when we were done, I had sold him, if you would, and I don't like to use that term, but he had chosen to purchase 3 suits, 3 shirts, 3 ties, 3 belts, and three sets of socks, and I think 2 pairs of shoes. So I took what would have been a $35 to $50 sale and made it into like a $1,600 sale. And he was kind of astounded by that. And he said, how did you do that? All I did was come in for a shirt and tie. And I said, well, I just wanted to get to know you a little bit and asked you a series of questions. And, you had a need and I fulfilled it.
Yeah.
And so he was impressed by that. He turned out to be a mortgage broker. And he asked me at that time, he said, hey, have you ever thought about getting into real estate? And like I said, I was 20 years old. I had just dropped out of Cal State LA under an electrical engineering major. I decided that engineering wasn't for me because I love people. I love interacting with people. And this particular job kind of opened that up to me because I was interacting with people and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So he had asked me, he said, hey, have you thought about doing real estate? And I said, as a matter of fact, I have. I've been thinking about maybe getting my license in selling. And so his response was, well, that's kind of a good thing, but, have you considered mortgages? And I said, well, I'm not familiar with that. And he says, well, in real estate, you can only income in one way. And that's either a transaction that you either help someone buy or you help someone sell. And I said, in mortgages, you have the opportunity of income in 3 different ways. And I said, well, how's that? He says, well, you can help someone with their finance to purchase. You can help someone refinance to either consolidate their debt or reduce their interest rate. Or at that time, there was what's called a Title I loan that the Department of Housing and Urban Development had available, which was called a Title I loan that was a home improvement loan. And they said, or you can do a Title I loan for a family that's looking to do some home improvements and you could earn money that way. So I said, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. And I said, would you be interested in coming to interview? And so long story short, I went over, I interviewed, he hired me, and that's how I was introduced to the real estate industry. Initially, the first years of my career, I was a mortgage banker. So that's how I kind of got into real estate.
Got it. So, no, that's super interesting. What was the name of that gentleman who
The broker, his name was Sergio Andrade.
Awesome.
Sergio Andrade. And I was working in Montebello. His office was in Temple City. So for over 30 years, I've really focused on serving the East San Gabriel Valley and the Inland Empire of LA. Although my career has taken me all over. I mean, I've sold properties in Palmdale, I've sold properties in San Fernando Valley, on the west side in Orange County, Riverside County. So, I mean, even though I focus on a particular region, because of my clients and my past clients who reach out to me and their referrals, I end up serving in other communities.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the area I serve, and that's where the office was Temple City. So it was kind of convenient too.
Now, I feel like a lot of people, they end up in the industry because people spot that there's something in them that like will fit in the industry, and you're like, hey, like you should check this out. Like maybe you should consider this. That's so cool. Like that interaction led to like a career change, you know?
Absolutely. I think in this industry, there's something called a disc profile. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but Tony Robbins has a tool that allows you to discover your different traits. And there's a few different traits to be a successful real estate agent that I think that are above and beyond. Number one is the D, which is driver, right? And I scored on a scale of 100. I think my D scale might have been somewhere around mid 80s.
Oh, nice.
But there's also an influencer, and then there's a social, and then there's like someone who's the C is for I forget what the C stands for, but it's someone who's either a CPA or someone that's into detail. So typically real estate agents, we're either a high D, a high I, or a high S, and very low in the C scale, because we're not really organized when it comes to that. And so I leverage those needs with my team, transaction coordinator and things of that nature. But in this industry, if you have a really good personality and you like people, which is typically in the high I, high S, you're going to have a reasonably good career, because it's about meeting people and not being shy, of course. And being in the retail industry, that's the first thing that you overcome is shyness. So he did recognize that, and that's kind of how I got started in real estate.
That's so awesome. So along the way, like you started as more in the mortgage industry. How did that transition into I guess doing more of like helping buyers and sellers?
That's a great question. So I was a mortgage banker for 8 years. Initially, I started working with that small brokerage. And after about a year, I moved over to what's called a mortgage banker. And I worked in that industry. So a broker is someone who's a broker, and you can choose different banks to work with. And a banker is primarily just one lender that you're going to use. So I worked for a couple of bankers for a few years. And then in the mid 90s, I ended up working for, that time it was called, well, it's been Washington Mutual, it's been Coast Federal Bank. But when I first started working with them, it was Coast Federal Bank back in the mid 90s. And I became a retail loan officer in their branches. And I would sit in 3 or 4 different branches, rotate daily, help their client base either refinance or purchase. And I was doing that. And then in 1995, I started working for a company called Metro Cities Mortgage. Our main focus there in my division is I was a manager lending for Mexico. And I did that for about 2 or 3 years. And that industry was primarily targeted at expats, people that were looking to retire in Mexico, and resort communities. Resort communities that I served were like Rosarito, Ensenada, San Felipe, San Carlos, Puerto Peñasco, and parts of Baja. And so I did that for about 2.5 years. And back in the 90s, the real estate industry in Mexico was at its infancy. They didn't have like title insurance. They didn't really have an escrow. It was just basically el notario público, which is the notary public, and Mexico is an attorney, and a buyer and a seller. So, we were successful in closing some transactions, but I think at that time, the market wasn't ready for us just yet. So after doing that for a few years, I found myself going back to school and getting my bachelor's in business administration. And when I did that, I was part of the U.S.-Mexico Chamber of Commerce at that time. And what I did is I applied for an internship with them, and I ended up winning. I was one of 6 selected candidates.
Nice.
And so I had the opportunity of going to Mexico City and living in Mexico City for 3 months. And I worked for one of the big 5 accounting firms at that time. And it was Deloitte & Touche in Mexico City. So that was a great experience. And so I left the mortgage industry, went back to school, and was still working in the real estate industry. But I decided to transition from mortgages to residential sales. For those 3 months when I was in Mexico, I mainly focused on my study part of my life. And then when I came back, there was a young lady who I had met at the first brokerage that I started with. Her and I kind of had a friendship for about 7 or 8 years, and we became best friends. And now I'm fortunate to call her my wife.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Come on.
That's how I met her.
That's so good.
I met my wife through the industry, and she was a mortgage banker as well. And so when I came back from that internship, I decided that she was much better at doing loans than I was. She's just more intelligent, more creative, and she just was a natural fit for that. And so we started dating, and we decided, hey, you know what, why don't you just focus on the mortgages, and you can focus on real estate. And so we kind of refer our clients back and forth to each other, because she would have clients come to her and said, hey, you know what, I'm thinking about selling my house, but the agent I worked with in the past, I didn't really like the way he treated me and what he did for us. So, I'm looking for an agent. Basically, she would refer them to me, and I would service them. And then now we have a mutual client base. So that's how I transitioned from doing real estate mortgages to doing real estate and residential sales.
Nice.
And that's kind of how it happened. And that happened in like 1999. So I was doing mortgages for 8 years. And then since 1999, really 2000, because that's when I kind of really focused on that, I started doing real estate sales, helping people buy and sell property.
Right. I think a lot of agents, they kind of like switch between the two. They're not sure, like, do I do the mortgage thing or do I do the real estate, like residential? And people will like try to cross in between, I think maybe too fast or too early, before they know like which one they truly want to go down or like focus on in a sense.
Right. And you bring up a good point. I think that, in California, we have to be a loan officer, you have to have a real estate license added to the Mortgage National Loan Officer's license, right? The NMLO license. And I think sometimes people tend to want to do both. And I'm a true believer that you can't be a master of both. You got to choose one or the other to be able to deliver quality service and a quality product to your consumer. And so with that said I recognize that my wife was a better fit for mortgages, right? And I was a better fit for residential real estate and now commercial. I'm doing some commercial now too. So
awesome.
It's important to select one or the other.
Yeah, I think, absolutely. So what's kept you like in the industry for so long? Because sometimes people can jump in the industry, jump out, or vice versa, where they have a little hiatus in between. Like how has it been for you?
That's a good question. I mean, as you know, it's going to be close to 30 years that I've been doing real estate, and I've done it pretty much consistent, with the exception of maybe 3 or 4 months because of school and that internship. But the reason I've been in it is because I realized early on that there wasn't anything out there that would give me the opportunity to earn income first and foremost. By delivering a quality service and product to my consumers at a high level, I just wasn't able to find it. Most people that I know that graduate college and get a degree and stuff, I mean, there's a cap to what they can earn. And fortunately in this industry, if you work hard enough and you do a good job by your clients and they refer you additional clients, I mean, you can make a pretty outstanding income. And so that's always kept me rooted in the industry. In addition to that is, as I mentioned before, I really love speaking to people and helping people buy and sell. Yeah. So basically what happens is I do it for them. They've kept me rooted just because, a transaction turns into a friendship and turns into a relationship. And our industry is not a transactional industry. Our industry is a relational industry. It's happened before. Funny story that I could share with you is I established a friendship with the family, the Romero family, maybe over 17 years ago. And it came from a simple door knock. They had their property on the market. And I had a client who is my cousin that was looking in the area, and she had noticed that she liked that home. And so I was going to show it to her, but then I noticed that the property came off the market. And my cousin, she really liked the neighborhood. She liked the location. She had driven it by. She goes, "You know what, Hector, I really like that house. Would it be possible to see that property?" I said, "You know what, let me see what I can do." And so I knocked on their door. And I introduced myself. I said, "Hey, my name is Hector. I don't mean to bother you, but I noted that your house was out on the market, and I've got a buyer that's interested in looking at the market. By chance, are you still thinking about making a move?" I think people would say fortune would have it. I think it was God choosing that destiny for them and myself. Yeah. They had just been talking about relocating to Colorado. And he said, "It's interesting you knock on our door. My wife and I are just having a conversation about relocating to Colorado." So long story short, my cousin, I told him, I basically said this. I said, "Hey, I've got a buyer that would like to see your home. I said, if she likes it and you want to sell, great. If she doesn't like it, or maybe you're deciding not to sell, no harm, no foul. Yeah. Would you allow me to do that?" And they did. They allowed me to bring my client, my cousin, to see the property. And my cousin didn't like it because of the layout, but we saw it and we established a relationship and a trust with the Romero family. Long story short is I helped them sell that house. I helped them relocate to Colorado. And from that door knock initial meeting, I've helped another 5 or 6 other family members buy and sell homes. Wow. Throughout the years. That's so cool. And just about 1.5 years ago, they called me back. I said, "Hey, Hector, it's Pete and Maria." I said, "Hey, Pete, how you doing?" I said, "Hey, guess what? We're thinking about relocating back to California." Oh, yes. So they sold their home in Colorado after 16 years. Yeah. I helped them buy a property here in Fontana. And then about 6 months later, he says, "You know what? I really don't want to be in Fontana. I want to be in San Pedro." So I helped them sell their Fontana house and I helped them buy something in San Pedro. And so that's one of the reasons why I think I love real estate, is because I have the opportunity to establish those relationships. Yeah. And get to meet more family and more friends just by serving them. And I think that's what's kept me rooted in this business, is the opportunity to establish those kind of relationships and the ability to really not have a cap in my income. Because
Yeah.
the more people I help, the more I will be rewarded.
Yeah. If you help enough people,
Yes.
you could, there's like a famous quote
Well,
from
Zig
Zig
Ziglar said,
Ziglar. Yes.
if you help enough people get what they want, you will get what you want.
Yes.
And I think that comes from a position of servitude, right? And
Yes.
I'm Christian, and we're obviously called to serve.
Yes.
And I think this business allows us to serve at a really high level, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah, I think like at the very center of entrepreneurship is servanthood, and leadership is servanthood. Absolutely, that's so cool.
Thank you.
So for you in 2008, like what was that experience like for you? Like the financial crisis?
That's a very good question. 2008 was probably the most economic and financial debacle that I've experienced. I'm 50 years old now. Certainly there's others that have gone through like the Great Depression and the time of the Cold War and other recessions as well. But for us in the industry, I mean, kind of shows how important real estate is, not only to families and local economies, but the national economy, right? In 2008, we had the big mortgage meltdown. And we found ourselves in a difficult position because banks were not doing very many loans. People were losing their houses. They were modifying their houses. Some people who couldn't modify had to short sell their houses. And it was a difficult time. And we went from having a predictable business, in other words, closing a certain amount of transactions, helping a certain number of families every year, to maybe like 20% of that. And so, because of that, I had to go out and find a full-time job that would have helped me provide for my family, health insurance and the needs that I needed to cover at home, but still allowed me the opportunity to do real estate during the day. So my days for about 10 years were pretty much from like 8 a.m. to like 2 a.m. daily. Because I found a position that allowed me to serve my real estate client, my business, from about 8 a.m. till about 2 o'clock. And then at 3 or 3:30, I would have to leave to go to my full-time job. And I typically wouldn't get home between maybe 12 and 2 o'clock, depending on the night. So, it took a lot of years of sacrifice, and, praise God that we were able to get through that. But, I was able to establish a lot of relationships because of that. And now I'm starting to see the fruits of those relationships in my business now, because people will call me like, hey, Hector, I know that you're in real estate, and it was really nice to meet you at your previous job. And, I'm looking to buy, or, I've got an aunt that's looking to sell, or, I need to sell in order to buy. And so, God has blessed me with those relationships. And again, back to the point is, our industry is a relational business. People are going to do business with you because they like and trust you.
Yes.
And, 2008, because of 2008, I was able to meet like over 10, 15,000 people in the position I had. And so now I have a pool of database that I market to in a non-aggressive way that just stay top of mind. And when they're in need, they think of me. And so that's a blessing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I truly believe that beautiful things are born out of adversity. And 2008 definitely was a lot of adversity, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was, I remember it pretty clearly. It was, and it was rough. Yeah.
It was rough.
Yeah.
If I had to be transparent, my kids, we would go to dinner at least 3 or 4 times a week. And there was a time when we're like, we can't do that now. We got to cook at home more often. We reduced our family vacations to maybe like camping or something like that, because it was a huge financial setback.
Yeah.
And more importantly, I think it really hurt a lot of families. It hurt a lot of their children, because they have that ingrained in their mind now. But luckily over the last 12, 13 years, we've seen a robust market. We've seen a market that's now fully recovered, and currently a market that's just, I like to use the term bananas. It's just on fire. It's crazy out there.
Yeah.
And I know we'll get to that in a little bit, but certainly 2008 allowed me to appreciate the small things in our family and our lives. And a lot of people were impacted negatively, and the market suffered a lot. But, praise God, we're out of that now. So
yeah.
It was an interesting time.
I mean, because coronavirus is obviously hard on a lot of people. Like, how, in terms of real estate, like how has that affected the real estate market? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Now that we're in the COVID economy, I call it, right?
Yeah.
Initially, when we first closed down last early March, a year ago, there was a lot of uncertainty. Initially real estate wasn't an essential business when they selected essential businesses, right? Like freight, travel, not travel, pardon me, freight, different industries that were like the supermarkets, utilities, things of that nature, the medical industry. It wasn't an essential business. So for about 6 to 8 weeks there, I think we're all kind of sitting around, twirling our thumbs thinking, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do for our clients? What are we going to do for our clients that we're currently working with? What are we going to do as far as serving our clients moving forward? How is COVID going to impact our business? Luckily, after 6 to 8 weeks, the state of California and other states were able to petition Congress and government that real estate was an essential business, which it is. If you think about real estate, it impacts so many industries. It's just not a house. You're talking about construction. You're talking about manufacturing. You're talking about
photography.
Photography, you're talking about, appliances, you're talking about tile, flooring, so many industries that are impacted that it's important to understand that, okay, how are we going to move forward from this, right? And so now real estate being an essential business gave us an opportunity to kind of get back to work. Things changed, we have COVID protocols even still today. We need to make sure that we sign a document that's called a property inspection advisory disclosure that pretty much says that, we haven't been sick or exposed to COVID for the last 14 days. We have to, hand sanitize. We have to wear booties. We have to wear gloves. We're only allowed an agent and 2 other people in the home when we're previewing. Now properties are blocked out as far as what days can be seen and how long you can be there. Most showings, you can only be in the property 15 minutes at a time, and then you have to allow the next person. And so it definitely impacted our industry. But, it's an interesting point here is that we thought that the market was kind of crash because we thought, well, no one's showing houses, properties aren't closing, people are being laid off. They're working from home. So there was a lot of interesting things that happened, led us to believe that the market was going to drop. And it's amazing. The exact opposite has happened because of technology. For example, like Zoom, we were able to do virtual tours. We're able to do like virtual presentations. We've pivoted with the need for the market because we've had to, right? Either you pivot or you die. Right?
Yes.
And those of us that have been in the industry a long time are benefiting from those relationships of our past clients because they continue to refer us, right? No longer are we allowed to door knock, no longer, and because of do not call regulations, many of us no longer call, right? There's still a few of us that do, and it's a productive way of getting clients, but the idea is to nurture your database, right? Nurture your past clients, and that's the best business type. And so the exact opposite happened with COVID. It's super busy.
Yeah.
I think what happened is people realized that they were, cooped up in their condos or their apartments or their small homes with small yards. And now they've decided, hey, you know what? Because businesses, for example, this morning I heard that Ford is going to allow a workforce of 30,000 employees to work from home.
Work remotely. Nice.
Well, what does that do, right? Now the dynamic changes in the employment where they no longer have to think, well, I need to stay close to where I work because I don't want to sit in traffic for 2 hours. And so now a lot more people are what we call telecommuting, right? Using Zoom, using the internet, having all their tools on their laptops. Students are learning from home, teachers are teaching from home. And so families are saying now, like, you know what? I think I want a house that's got more yard. Maybe some more space, maybe looking for like open concept, maybe looking to sell what they have in order to take that equity and buy something bigger. Some are even relocating out of state. They're going to like Idaho, Nevada, they're going to Texas, they're going to Arizona, they're going to Colorado and Washington and Oregon because there's more space. It's probably more natural, whatever their goals are, that's kind of what we're facing that with. And added with the fact that interest rates are really low. I mean, they've gone up a little bit over the last couple of weeks, but I mean, we're closing transactions like at 2.4%, 2.6% fixed for 30 years, something that was unheard of. And so I think that was driving, and it's continuing to drive the market. And so now there's a big demand, right? And so with that big demand, prices are going up, fast, quick. I mean, houses that were purchased a year ago for 500,000 now are worth 600,000. And it's crazy. There's not enough inventory for the demand. Right now, what we're seeing is that every listing that comes in the market has over 30 showings on a weekend, multiple offers like in double digits, and unfortunately some families lose out because sellers can only sell to one family, right? One buyer. So, COVID has definitely had an impact in that,
right.
along with the interest rates.
Yeah.
But, praise God, we're in a situation right now where there's a lot of demand, but there's just not enough inventory.
Right.
So there's a little bit of a glitch right now going on.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was thinking, when's the last time, has this ever happened where there was just a shortage of supply kind of like we have today? Or is this
not to this degree.
Yeah.
Not to this degree. So there's three different type of markets. There's a seller's market, there's a normal market, and then there's a buyer's market. And those three markets are defined by the following. When you're in a seller's market, inventory is 2 months or less. Okay. When you're in a normal market, what does that mean? 2 months or less is that homes are sitting on the market less than 2 months. They're sold in that time. Okay. A normal market is a market where you have enough inventory where homes are selling between 3 to 6 months. Okay. Which means there's enough inventory that buyers have options. Okay. And then you have a buyer's market. And a buyer's market is where inventory is sitting for 6 months or longer. Okay.
It's like 2008. Yeah.
Like 2008, right?
Yeah.
So traditionally what happens is in a seller's market, there's so much demand, not enough inventory that prices go up, right? In a normal market or a traditional market, there's enough inventory where prices are stable. They're just stable. They're not dropping. They're not going up. They're just stable. And that's a healthy market. In a buyer's market, we're seeing a lot of inventory sitting on the market. And so what happens, and not enough buyer demand. So what happens is prices tend to drop. Why? Because sellers still need to sell. And so now they're finding themselves adjusting their price to be able to get a buyer under contract and finally move on with their life and get, do the things that they plan on doing. A normal market or a traditional market is ideally where you want to be in real estate, right? Right now we're kind of enjoying the fruits of a seller's market where there's not enough inventory, but you have like 20, 30 offers coming in with hundreds of buyers lined up outside their doors to see the property. And so, yeah, it's great for sellers because it's driving the property, but it's not good for buyers.
Yeah.
Right. And for the market in itself, it's not good either. So you want to find a happy medium, and a traditional normal market is between 3 to 6 months. And that's where you see a lot more abundance as far as options for buyers, where right now they're not having that option. They're not having that success. So it's a little tough.
Yeah.
But if you're a seller, man, you're in the driver's seat right now.
Right.
You're able to, right now what we're seeing offers being made above price and waiving their appraisal contingency because they're competing against 15 other buyers, right?
Yeah.
And luckily some of these buyers have the cash to give the difference, but that's what we're facing right now.
Yeah. Wrapping it up a little bit here, like, where do you see, I guess, the market going in the next like 12 months? Like, how long can this be sustainable? Like what's your, I guess just in terms of maybe your insight or intuition, like where do you see that going?
I would like to say that the market's going to stabilize this coming year. But I think because of buyer demand and interest rates still being relatively low at the 3% mark, like right now they're at 3.125%, 3.25%, which is still reasonable. I mean, I got in the industry back when I first started at 2021, where interest rates were like in the mid 14%. So I think over time, people have kind of gotten a little spoiled with 3% interest rates, right?
Yeah.
But I think what's going to happen is as interest rates start to rise, which they will, I think buyers that are qualifying for homes now are not going to qualify in another maybe 12 to 18 months. And so what's going to happen is the buyer demand is going to drop, and then homes are going to start stabilizing, and maybe we'll start transitioning into more of a buyer's market in the future. But until that happens, I really don't see in the foreseeable future that the market's going to slow down. We're in March right now. Spring is just around the corner. And traditionally in real estate, at least in Southern California, I mean, we're a year-round kind of sales, but typically like spring and summer are booming months. Those are months where the market peaks. And we're kind of hoping that more sellers come to market to ease that demand, right? And stabilize the market. So kind of looking forward to April, May, June, July, see what the market does. And that's kind of what my insight is on how the market's going to go. And I think it'll start really slowing down a little bit more, maybe in 2022, 2023.
Awesome. We'll have to see. We'll have to come back and see what happens. Yeah.
Yes.
And film again. Yeah. Super cool. Thank you for sharing your story and for a couple different insights and knowledge just from hearing you talk about like even the adversity you had to go through to just continue in the industry. but if you never stop, then you can't fail if you just keep going forward. So
Right.
all
Right. Well, I
forward.
certainly appreciate the opportunity. My personal goal here is probably to be in the industry here for maybe like another 5 years. I'm looking to build a team that can be productive and kind of maybe on a personal level, get out of production, but be a leader of sorts that I can maybe continue to assist our client base from here to the future. So I
That's
appreciate
awesome.
the time that you've given me. I look forward to being in touch with you again. And
Yeah.
again, if there's
Definitely.
anyone that you know that needs my services, it would be an honor to serve them.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll throw your information up top, down below, in the description, and all that good stuff. Yeah, thanks again. Until next time. Cool.
I'll talk to you soon, Brian. Take care.
Hey guys, if you like that content, go ahead and click on the next video or consider subscribing. Thanks, guys.